Listen to me very carefully, because this is very, very important for you to know that the nature of this existence of this universe, the nature is decay. Well, I'm not talking about that you can destroy things, or I'm talking about nature on its own. If you leave an apple out in open air, whatever, it starts going rotten, decomposes and it deconstructs and pretty much gets corrupt, right? So corruption, decay and death is part of the cycle, clearly. So the nature, you cannot go against the nature if you are complaining about corruption within human beings, because corruption is part of the nature itself. You cannot dismiss and say, hey, I want this human being to be a beautiful thing and very moral and follow by the rules and give and give and give and become humanitarians, and everybody is living in utopia, because utopia is not realistic. Utopia as we know it, like a perfect condition for a human being, it doesn't exist in that positive way that people think, right? Everything is part of everything. Life is part of death, and death is part of life. Without life, you won't have death. Without death, you cannot define life. Okay? So corruption in the world, in the politics, in the finances, in the people, in the universe, in nature is part of the game. Is part of the story. You cannot take the edge of a knife. Okay, so if you can understand that, and people don't like it when you tell them that there has to be bad, so the good is understandable, and especially if you are in a shitty situation, if you're upset, if you don't want to hear the truth, really, you're not going to accept that and say, well, why can't I just have it the easiest? Why can't I just not have a good life just forever? Why? What's wrong with it? Look at such and such. Look at such and such. Dismissing and undervaluing the problems that such and such is going through, right? Regardless of your situation. It doesn't matter what you are or who you are. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, they have their own problems, because without their problems, they don't exist. The good life, sure, they have a good life. They're billionaires, they're famous, this and this and this, but they're stressed to their core, for example. I don't know who's going through what, right? Going through a divorce. Something's happening with their family, something happening with their children, something's happening with their health, because they worked so hard and they neglected it. Look at someone like Steve Jobs dying of cancer, right? That just doesn't happen, right? So everything is part of everything. Everything is sort of a balance. So if you can understand that, then you can observe it, but you don't have to complain constantly about how the world is still corrupt and how the politicians are corrupt, and if they weren't corrupt, we would be in a much better situation. No, that is part of the game. I'm not saying this is good or bad, and certainly we can put safety measures, we can put, different systems, and the more the system is healthy and not corrupt, obviously you end up with a better situation, better country. That's not up to debate. But what I'm trying to say, even within that perfect country, perfect situation, you will have corruption. It's just the degree that, and then if you go off that balance, if everybody become prophets, all of a sudden you have something that is not natural, and natural things don't last. And it's as simple as that, right? A dictatorship is not natural. That's why it doesn't last. It's very simple, right? They cannot play both sides of the game to keep it balanced. That's what happens. And that's the problem with those systems. But dictator after dictator comes and tries it their way, and they think they're right, and all of that scenarios that everybody knows about, right? And we unfortunately do not learn from our mistakes. And those people that get to those situations, those power mongers, human beings, for whatever reason, whatever trauma, childhood trauma that they went through, and however this is coming out, based on the circumstances and the probabilities of their life, being born in the right situation, into the right family, and being an absolute asshole to want to take from people and be a dictator. But just don't learn from our mistakes. Khamenei is not going to learn about Hitler's mistake. Hitler is not going to learn about his previous dictator's mistake. And that's why they say the history repeats, because we rarely listen and we rarely learn things from our own history. And most people don't even read it anyway. They don't even know where we came from, how we came about here. Obviously, then that's the core of education. That's the core of education, understanding you. It says in the Bible, right? Any Christians here, right? I don't know, any Christians, any Muslims knows to know thyself, the Bible says, right? And it is in a holy book for a reason. I know it's not perfectly, intact, those holy books. Possibly the Muslims don't believe so. They think that their version was never corrupted, which I always challenge historically. I always challenge that historically. That what are your sort of historic reasons or beliefs that this book wasn't corrupted, right? There are history that was written. Obviously, history is always written by the conquerors anyway. So if the Muslims say it's not corrupted, therefore it's not corrupted. It's always up to debate. So you need to understand that, and you need to understand that this universe operates this way. Okay? So, and if you don't like it, well, that's just too bad. That's completely up to you what you want to believe, right? But the facts never change, and math and physics and everything and sciences are there to prove that. And I think the best thing you can start with, I'm not saying science has all the answers, because it doesn't. We don't have all the answers, but at least we have a better grasp at understanding who we truly are. We're trying to understand it step by step, and we started from an atomic model that then it was refined, and now we're down to Higgs bosons, for example, the last particle, the smallest particle that they found in the accelerator when they had it, and there was a massive eruption of joy for scientists, obviously, as you could imagine. It's a monumental moment for them. So please understand these things, and please go after sciences if you're interested. It doesn't matter what your interest is, really. You don't have to have, mathematics. Fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't invent it. We didn't invent it. Nobody invented it. We only discovered it. It seems to be that mathematics is an amazing thing, and mathematics is the key. The mathematics is the key to everything, right? So because once you understand the numbers and once you understand the patterns, those patterns will converge into something more, and then that will open up more doors for you. Okay, so explanation of that would be an example of, for example, if you can understand algebra. Algebra is the fundamental to understanding balance, right? You have an equation over here, which is the sign that two, and this is amazing how things cross each other all the time. Here we have two parallel lines. Parallel lines are known not to touch each other ever, which is the meaning of eternity. Okay, the meaning of eternity. As long as you keep going, these two lines, they're never going to collapse, or they're never going to touch each other. And that's one of the meanings of eternity, right? The equal sign here. And on either side of the equal sign, you have this balance, right? You have a balance of numbers. You have a balance of an equation. It could be chemical equation. It could be a physical equation, it could be mathematical equation, but it is equation, and we know that innately, right? Our whole body is a system that needs balance, right? Is a system that needs understanding about what is too much, what is too little. Because imagine your body, your system, right? If it's out of balance, what happens to you? You're gonna get sick, right? And the ultimate unbalance is death. As a result, that the maximum you can balance your life, and you're not perfect at it, obviously. You love chocolate and all that stuff, unhealthy food, and you don't want to exercise. God knows for why. But the more you can keep your balance intact in life, in your body, the more you become. You have longevity. And longevity means this, right? Eternity. So clearly, with the limitation of our body, we've done really well. Within the last centuries or so, we increased the lifespan of a human being from an average of, I don't know how much it was, 30, 40, to now 80, 90, even 100 sometimes, in some countries. So we've done pretty well in terms of, making our bodies healthy, keeping our balance on both sides of the equation to meet eternity, which is that parallel line that never touch each other, which the meaning of never means eternity, obviously. Clearly you have to go against, well, it's not like an against, but it's again that game, right? You have to go against greedy corporations. They constantly put sugar in your diets. You are in charge of your own body, right? So you need to be in charge, and you need to stay in charge, because the more in charge you are, you can actually prolong your life, and that's what ultimately everybody should aim for, eternity. And it is in our culture, like it's in our religion, it's in our culture. Go and read and see Egyptian what is it, the hieroglyphy, I don't even know how to say that word, but their language, right? The way they used to think and write things on the tombs. And every single one of those pharaohs, their ultimate goal was to become eternal, and that's why they had those rituals, right? That's why we have alchemists, that's why we have philosopher's stone in our folk and in our history and in our culture and everything else. And the reason is because, and death is the end of us as we know it, is end of me as I know it, and nobody wants that, right? Unless you are suffering from mental health issues or depressed, and that's clearly another imbalance, right? So that's another imbalance. So the aim is to keep the balance and keep it going, and until you can understand and realize this life as we know it, because everything else is secondary now, right? As everything else comes at an entertainment price. Like you just buy one car and then you're bored with it, and then you have another one and then you're bored with that, you need a new one. So it's just sort of distraction after distraction. Whereas the truth on its own, which is in fact God, Allah, Yahweh, whatever you believe in, whatever the name that you want to give it, Taoism, Taoists, they believe in Tao. The one and only that governs all is not boring, because once you understand that, you actually transcend. And that's what they say as well, right? They say life is a lesson, and you will learn the lesson when you're through, clearly. And the faster you can understand this, the closer you become to a saint or Jesus or Muhammad or those people that were of an extreme connection and extreme understanding of nature. That, I believe, Lao Tzu as a collective, because it's a collective effort of writers together. It's not just one person. Lao Tzu means old man, and all those philosophies together as a collective is eternal, is actually that of the prophet material, let's say. The reason that prophets became prophets, because they could understand the ultimate algebra equation, right? The ultimate balance, which is creation, which is you and I, and how we came about, and how these trees came about. And that's the ultimate mystery, if you can solve it. So play with that and enjoy that, and see how you can increase your understanding. And that's what I do as well, right? I'm not saying me as in to tell you what, because I do it, you should do too, but it's very exciting. It's extremely exciting understanding how and where and why things connect to one another, and we become, as a collective, we become more aware. And I truly believe in that we could well be intergalactical species if we can get along and understand each other and understand our nature, and don't it will be a sad story for me, because I am human, if we as a collective decided, now let's nuke each other and destroy each other, become extinct. Because I think we have the brain that is very rare. Clearly we can't see it in other species. That's for tonight. Adios, and I will see you guys when I see myself. All right, bye.